Obviously, we haven't done it in a while. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 6 of Do It Live, the show where me on this side of the camera and all of you on that side of the camera collaborate and talk about the news and talk about the stories of the day early in the day so that I can get some ideas of what might be good to talk about on the main show, on Think Tank, on my personal channel, and today during our debate coverage, because of course today is the day of the second GOP debate, which is going to be hosted by CNN, so it should be pretty exciting, if not informative, and probably is not going to change too much. Let's see. Before we get started with the searching for the stories, there's already people chatting it up. I want to see, do you think they'll try to gang up on Trump again? I do think they're going to try to gang up on Trump, but I don't think they're going to try to gang up on him again. I think that the ganging up, I mean, it was like in a kung fu movie. Like, they weren't all piling on top of Bruce Lee or whatever. One ninja would run forth and do a little like half attempt at punching him and get knocked out, and then the other one would come forward and try to like backhand him a little bit. We'll see if they all sort of have somewhat coordinated in terms of their message and everything. But honestly, I don't know. Like, if Trump had actual positions that you could assail or point out how they're wrong, then I think that you could attack him at a debate. But when he doesn't have anything that he really stands for, aside from generating a feeling of outrage amongst mostly racist extreme conservatives, how do you really combat that? Mexicans aren't all rapists. I don't think that's going to win over the GOP. I don't know. Gardenome, I totally agree. Like, I think that you shouldn't do what like CNN is doing, where you basically just cover whatever it is that Trump does. But he is right now the front runner. So if he says something significant or something so wrong that it needs to be countered in the media, then we're going to cover it. Like, it's not Ann Coulter, it's not Rush Limbaugh, it's not Donald Trump before the election. It's not just this random person existing all unto themselves. Like, this person needs to be opposed, or they could very well be the GOP nominee. And if America is crazy enough, he could be the president of the United States. I would love to ignore him if I thought that was the best strategy to defeat him, but I don't know that it is. Let's see. You made me envision Jackie Chan. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at some news. So obviously, the Ahmed Mohammed arrest is all over the place. I did read up on that yesterday. A couple of people tweeted it to me, and I mean, it's a fairly clear case of prejudice against Muslims, which I understand that people have reason to be afraid of ISIS and some other Muslims over the course of the past decade and a half, but this kid didn't do anything. And I imagine that if he had been white and his name was like Johnny or something, the clock would not have been a cause for concern. Although, who knows? We had the kid that was taken into the principal because he held a chicken nugget like it was a gun. So we're afraid of pretty much everything in this country. I had to watch the Republican debate. I think everybody's going to end up watching the Republican debate. The official poverty measure is garbage. The census has found a better one. Let's see. They're saying the real poverty rate is 15.3%. which is lower than a couple of years ago, but not statistically significant. Supplementary poverty measurement. The official poverty measure is based on what people ate in 1955, according to Vox. It was developed by the SSA in 1963. The official defined as 3 times the subsistence food budget for a family of a given size. So the idea is that if back in the 50s you made enough money to buy the equivalent of 3 times as much food as you need. I mean, obviously, like, there's been inflation and everything, but I mean, rent is far more expensive than it was in the past. Insurance is far more expensive than it was in the past. And those things are things that generally poor people need as well. So it seems like basing the entire thing off of something like food intake or how expensive that is would seem to have some natural problems with it. How many electronics did I take to school in each asks? I don't think I ever took anything dangerous to school. Yeah, so Garden Gnome's talking about discussing Trump for long periods during both hours. I mean, I think he very rarely comes up in the second hour. To the extent that we discuss him for a long time in the first hour, I think that's less a problem of Trump specifically and more a problem of everything that we discuss for too long in the first hour because we like talking about this stuff. Yeah, so Stephen Buckley saying not just prejudice against Muslims in the case of Ahmed Mohammed, but black Muslims. Yeah, certainly. I mean, I know growing up some white Muslims who probably wouldn't have faced that sort of thing. I mean more mainly ethnically coming from those parts of the world that we traditionally associate with Islam. Okay, let's check some of the standard sites that I haven't gone to yet today. Bill O'Reilly labels the refugee crisis as the dramatic Muslim invasion. Yeah, it's definitely a coordinated thing. They're not fleeing anything. They're just coming for our stuff. I'm not even gonna click on that because I'm not gonna report on it. Fox and Friends host tells Emily Blunt to leave Hollywood because she said something a couple days ago about how the GOP contenders for the nomination make her not want to be an American. So yeah, just leave Hollywood, leave America. Standard argument. Conservative crime, fear-mongering, bleh. Let's see. No, I'm not interested in this. So obviously we're going to be talking a lot about the debate during the debate, so I do want a lot of stories that don't have to do with the debate. So let's see what's going on at Think Progress. South Carolina school suspends student for "Nobody knows I'm a lesbian" t-shirt. Now everybody knows. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably the point. I don't know that that's a bad thing necessarily. I mean, the idea of any student at, I don't know if it's a high school or she could be an 8th grader at a high school who's willing to like be so open about who they are and what they are and everything is bold in a way that I wasn't back at that point. I think a lot of students aren't. I don't know that we should necessarily attack that, if we should try to shut that down. And look, I have a feeling that this presumably high school, let's find out if she's in high school lesbian, I'm assuming. No, maybe it's 8th grade or 7th grade. I'm not sure. Look, they might say, like, clothing deemed distracting, revealing, overly suggestive, and overly disruptive. Like, if you had a thing that says "Nobody knows I'm straight," nobody would say that that's overly sexual. So the idea that something that says that I'm a lesbian is overly sexual, that's prejudiced. It just is. You could say that you want to stop the student from wearing it because you're worried as a lib that they might be targeted for bullying or even violence, which I would be a little bit more sort of sympathetic to that view. But I think that that student probably knows better than the administrator what the climate is when it comes to orientation issues. Thank you, Anitra. So it is high school. So no, I mean, that is a small, like, I don't know, there are details that I could not know perhaps, but that is like an everyday act of heroism to the extent that somebody in high school can be heroic. Like, okay, it's not the 90s anymore. We're a little bit more progressive on these issues, but we are not where we need to be. This person should be applauded. But no, you have to write and sing pop music to get applauded in this country, especially as a female. Elizabeth Warren wants to stop companies from checking your credit before they hire you. That's interesting. What do you guys think about that? It does. I have to admit that when I started getting into applying for jobs, just your hashtag. Yeah, the hashtag does look pretty bad. So when I started applying for jobs, I definitely thought it was weird that they check your credit. Like, you're not getting a loan from your job. You know, you don't owe them anything. And they will say that it's supposed to be a proxy for, you know, what you're like, if you're reputable, if you're reliable. But isn't that what the interview is for? Like, they're supposed to get a feel for your personality. The fact that they would have access, if not line item access, to your financial history does seem weird. Hissy Fit's saying my credit is not an employer's business, and yeah, I find that pretty persuasive. Oh yeah, Stephen Buckley, the Jeb Bush tax cuts. I have that already that I wanna put in the show today. Okay, let's see. Credit reporting companies that sell Americans' personal data to potential employers have pushed the narrative that a credit history somehow provides insight into someone's character. In fact, research has shown that an individual's credit has little to no correlation with his or her ability to succeed in the workplace. My devil's advocate sort of gene tells me that the first sentence is not saying the same thing as the second sentence. I don't know that an individual's credit has any correlation to their character, but I do buy that it doesn't have any correlation with their ability to succeed in the workplace. And I mean, you would imagine that a person that has had credit problems in the past, which by the way, we love to assume has to do with personal responsibility or something like that, doesn't necessarily. It could have to do with the fact that maybe you had to take out insane student loans because your family couldn't afford to put you through college, or maybe it implies that you or someone in your close family had medical problems and you had to help support them, and so money was always extremely tight for you. Wouldn't they be even more likely to want to work as hard as possible to maintain a job because of their financial problems? No, we assume that it's a sign of irresponsibility. That's some sort of problem with your moral fiber. And on that, I was saying yesterday in the production meeting, I hate fiber used metaphorically in that way. Use it literally in terms of the fiber of your clothing or in terms of the fiber intake that you have to keep regular. I don't like the moral fiber thing because it's basically saying that I have no specifics to use when I talk about what a person is like, what constitutes their personality, their value system. I just want to imply in a very vague sense that there's something suspect there. Yeah, and Garden Gnome is saying that debt can be incurred by the fact that someone is trying to be responsible, of course. That's entirely true. So right now, for the past few months, the past 6 months or so, I've been putting a significant amount of my after bills money into my student loans because I don't want to be burdened for the next 20 or 30 years by my student loans. And that is leaving me, which is somewhat irresponsible, with not a lot of savings because I'm putting it into getting rid of this debt that I've incurred over the course of undergrad and graduate school. But if TYT was to go under and I was to be out on the street, my lack of savings could end up with me possibly missing a few payments to my cell phone company or whatever other thing that I have. But this is a result of me trying to be responsible. If you don't have a ton of money, you can't necessarily be responsible in every way. If you want to get ahead on paying off your debt, you can't necessarily also maintain a lot of savings. And so look, I think Elizabeth Warren and those other lawmakers are onto something. Elizabeth Warren is of course, going to get the credit because she's the big name, but other people who are supporting it deserve credit too. So I'm going to propose that for the main show, possibly for Final Judgment. Yeah, Garden Gnome, I think that's... It's hard, man, but I think it's a good idea. Stephen Buckley, is it possible? Can you tweet me a link to that? I did see an article on, I think it was on Medium, about the rise of methamphetamine and crystal and all that, specifically in LA, but they're talking with some of the dealers of it or people who previously dealt it. Its rise in poor black communities, which previously we had not generally considered crystal meth to be a particular, like a drug that would be particularly common in those communities, but apparently it's on the rise. Because dealers can't necessarily in a lot of lucrative markets make much money off of marijuana anymore because in California it's sort of de facto legal, and so they've moved on to pushing these other sorts of drugs, these more intense drugs where there is still profit to be made. And that is a potential disaster because meth fucks you up, in my own personal experience, not amongst myself, but some people that I've known, and in the life experience of these dealers in a way that crack doesn't even. I mean, crack will fuck you up physically and economically, socially, but not in the way that crystal meth will. The gender wage gap hasn't improved in 7 years. Let's look at that. Hey, Papa Ken Media, how's it going? I am having a good morning. I hope you are too. I made time to go to the gym in the morning, which is always good, especially because we're going to be, like I have after this, I got to get to Think Tank. Then we got to prepare for the main show, and then we do 2 hours of the main show, and then we do the debate coverage for several hours, and then our post-debate wrap-up. It's going to be a very long day, so I was glad to get that in. Okay, so let's see. We've got 1960 to 2014, the earnings of men versus the earnings of women. So one thing that leaps out is that from 1975 in real dollars, the earnings of men do not go up at all. Now, thankfully, the earnings of women do go up, and they begin to get closer until about 2000, maybe rising a little bit on into 2010, where they're showing all the recessions there. Man, we are fucked. Obviously, women are more fucked there, but men are pretty fucked as well. If for 40 years, far longer than I have been alive, our actual earnings have not been going significantly up. Hey, Matthew Busselina, how's it going? That's a problem, man. I'm gonna leave that aside too. Okay, let's see. Let's check the New York Times. Hungarian riot police clash with migrants at border gate. Yeah, I've been reading a lot about that recently. And there's some countries that have been saying that they've set a cutoff point where up until, I think it actually might have been Tuesday or whatever, that they would continue to let migrants in. and or they would allow a certain number in, which is like 1 day's worth or something like that. I mean, the sheer number of people that are having to flee the violence and economic instability in Syria and other countries in the Middle East and North Africa is just amazing. Del Juve Piero says, John, why did TYT ignore the vast majority of Syrian refugees are actually fleeing Assad? In what way are we ignoring that the vast majority of Syrian refugees are actually fleeing Assad? I mean, when we talk about the violence, the chance of death, the chaos in Syria, I would attribute a significant portion of the blame for that directly to Assad. I think that everyone else at TYT would. We've referenced Assad multiple times. I don't know what that's reference to. Hey Belinda, how's it going? As shutdown nears, Obama to join budget fight. Man, they are really pushing through with this on Planned Parenthood. They are so dead set. I love that they just take one of their social issues every 6 months or every 8 months, and that's why we need to shut down the government. They just choose the one that they're most passionate about at that particular time. Okay, let's see. Mr. Obama will call the proposal one area of common ground. What proposal? Having to do with tax breaks. That's wonderful. We definitely need those right now. Oh, no, the president is proposing eliminating. Let's see, which tax break? He's pushing Republicans to scrap a multi-billion-dollar tax advantage for private equity managers. I don't think... Now, look, he says that he's going to use the money to pay for spending increases on domestic and national security programs, and to the extent that he focuses on national security programs, he might have their interest a little bit. But the idea that they're going to effectively, in their words, raise taxes on the job creators, even though they don't necessarily create jobs, the private equity managers, that seems insanity. And especially if you tie it to domestic spending increases, which you know that they, of course, don't want. Hey, Shady Character. Hey, JL. How's it going? Anderson, what's up? And Nature says, I wish I could choose to shut down my job every 6 months for bullshit reasons while still getting paid. That would be great. I think that we should take our cues from government in terms of their ability to do that. Let's go to Vocative. I like some of their cultural stuff and some of their international stuff. Thank you, Shady. That's awesome. I stand with Ahmed. That's good. I'm sick of hashtags, honestly. I'm sick of 90% of hashtags. I totally support this kid. I think that it's clear case of prejudice and it needs to end. But I don't want to get involved in another hashtag thing. I just want to talk about it. I want to talk about it and try to change it without the hashtags. Let's see. South China Sea claim sparks tension. Not surprised. Ben Carson is charging up the Google charts. I barely care about that. I don't know that it represents anything. By the way, have you guys seen this thing about Elon Musk? He wants to put like a fleet of 4,000 satellites to provide wireless internet throughout the world to the 60% of the world that doesn't have it right now. I like the idea of that. The idea of 4,000 additional satellites is a little bit scary because I've read about how theoretically we could be making future space travel almost impossible by putting more and more space debris in the air. In our atmosphere, I should say, there's a lot of atmosphere though, and I think that we'll probably be okay. And especially if it provides Wi-Fi access to parts of the world that don't currently have it. That Wi-Fi access being hopefully more significant than just providing entertainment or access to YouTube, but we've seen in the past allowing for social organization, getting money through microloans to impoverished communities, especially women. That sort of Wi-Fi can be incredibly important. He plans on doing it by 2018. I saw that he wanted to launch in the next 5 years or something like that. If Anna did one of the Do It Live, she would flip the fucking wagon, as they say. She would go berserk. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to get her over to my home first thing in the morning, but it would be fun to have her on. Maybe I can create a version of this that has boxes for 2 webcams. What's a good site? Let's see what, I almost never get anything from Vice, but let's just check out what Vice is doing right now. W215 Philly says, what will it take for the media to take Bernie seriously? I think that they are taking them more seriously. Now, I mean, even New York Times admitted that they were unnecessarily dismissive. Netiquette 101, don't feed the trolls. Let me look at that. Recon Ghost says, John, where are the think tank videos? I mean, the videos for today, one should have gone out so far, but that's it for today. They come out like every half hour after 9. Let's see. Trolls. I'm seeing no Case studies. Those can be interesting up to a point. Del Huvi Piero, what do you think about Dave taking shots at Cenk? I mean, people are allowed to disagree on any issue they want, and Dave isn't even an employee of TYT anymore. So to the extent that he disagrees with Cenk, that's perfectly legitimate, and he can do that. I would argue that some of his unspoken and perhaps unrecognized political biases are leading him to conclusions that are inaccurate, and his desire to be associated with people that he rightfully respects quite a bit is causing him to perhaps go farther in his rhetoric than he would otherwise if he didn't have access to people like Sam Harris. And so I don't agree with him on these issues largely, and I don't even know that him or Sam Harris at the end of the day knows exactly why they're saying the things that they are, what they hope to accomplish with it. But he can legitimately disagree with whoever he wants. He's an adult. He has channels. What would be a good thing to turn to now? Every once in a while, something good comes up on Right Wing Watch. They tend to cover a lot of people that I don't find to be objectively all that significant in both media and politics and religion. Dave basically calls Cenk a liar. Well, I haven't heard Dave call Cenk a liar. I know that Sam Harris says that Cenk is a liar, and I think that Sam Harris is inaccurate. And I would say I read a lot of Sam Harris's book. Hell, I read one of his books just like 4 days ago or something like that. On a lot of issues, I agree with him. And on a lot of his philosophy, I agree with him. But I do think that he does what a lot of people do, whereas he has made his career on writing books that contain a lot of thoughtful analysis of politics and society, but also throwing in bombshells like the preemptive nuclear strikes and stuff like that. And then later on trying to disassociate yourself from the things that you wrote that people can go and they can read. And you can say whatever you want 10 years later about hypotheticals or whatever, but you were the one putting them in your books and including them in your speeches and all of that. I'm not even particularly interested in that exact example, but I have noticed a history of attempting to get credit and get popularity and get notoriety off of saying extremely dramatic sort of bomb-throwing sort of things, and then denying that you ever said it, which is trying to politically and from an author's point of view, trying to have your cake and eat it too. But I leave it to every individual to read the books and listen to his statements, and you can decide if Cenk is lying or not. I don't think that he is. Roy Moore says, Christians like me are being forced out of public office. That is an absolutely fucking ignorant thing to say. They are not being forced out of office, and in fact, in many places in the country, it's still a prerequisite to get into office. Papagan Media says, hey John, I've been looking to work on my video editing skills. Not sure how much you do, but any tips for skills / topics / software to focus on? No, I don't mind non-politics stuff. I've edited about 5,000 videos on Think Tank and TYTU since I started this on my personal channel. I would say for software, there is free software, which is perfectly fine. I would say that if you're going to pay for software, either Final Cut or Premiere are perfectly good. I use Premiere because I can use it at home on PC and at work on Apple. I would say in terms of skills, you simply have to edit. You have to watch videos and see things in videos that you like and try to come up with, well, how would I do that same thing they did? And then there are a million amazing tutorial sites. I think Final Cut King is one. There's YouTube channels. Like if you Google, how do I do this in Premiere or Final Cut, there are websites, something cow, where they have tutorials for all sorts of this stuff. And walking through it with a video can be very helpful, I think. Let's see. U.S. must fight gay. How can your country be this fucking crazy? I don't know exactly what that means in terms of fighting gay. Let's see. If we must fight and we must allow gays into the military to help us with the fighting, sure. Linda Harvey, U.S. must fight gay rights, not climate change. I don't know why those things would be mutually exclusive. Why can't you be against gays and climate change? Let's see. I'm not coming across a ton that I really like. Let's check at time. They're sometimes okay. Let's see. I've still got, I would say, 5 to 10 more minutes. This is the tax loophole Obama, Bush, and Trump all want to close. Wow, Bush wants to close it. I have a feeling he would offset it with other tax cuts for those same people. And I'm sure that you guys have seen the breakdown of those Bush tax cuts. They're disastrous. I mean, I like that the lowest tax bracket would save $200 a year. That's great. I'm sure that they could use those $200. But the fact that thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands would be saved, by the top tax bracket. That seems unbalanced to me. Hey, John, just wanted to say TYT got me interested in news again. Thanks for all your hard work. Oh, that's awesome, Gustavo. Thank you. They also got me interested in news back in the day, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. John Stewart on the 9/11 first responders. Hungary clashes with migrants. Let's see what that clash actually constitutes. They use tear gas and water cannons. That's bad imagery. On hundreds of migrants who broke through a razor wire fence on the border with Serbia on Wednesday, increasingly prevented from moving into Hungary, began taking a longer route through Croatia. God. This is a fucking mess, man. One of the biggest messes around this world right now. Hungary has become the main entry point into the European Union for migrants, with more than 200,000 entering the country so far this year. Man. Look, I don't know a lot domestically about Hungary in terms of their infrastructure, their capacity to help those people. I mean, obviously, I think that every country has an obligation to do whatever they can to help those people. 200,000 is a significant number of people. Now, those people are not all going to stop in Hungary. They're going to filter into other EU countries. And I think that it would be to the interest of every EU country to help distribute people throughout those places. To help make sure that they can, to the best of their ability, integrate those people into their societies, get them up and get them back where they need to be economically, socially, in terms of their healthcare and all of that. 200,000 in Hungary is a lot of people, but I don't think that gas canisters and water cannons are the solution. But I am going to save this for possible inclusion in the main show. Belinda Rose says, thank you for your work. I watch TYT all the time. Have you ever seen Cirque du Soleil or Circus Show before? I mean, I grew up going to circuses every once in a while. I definitely have seen Cirque du Soleil, and that is one of, like, my favorite live things to go to. I understand that this is not necessarily, I guess it's popular. People go to it, but I fucking love Cirque du Soleil. For the same reason that I like fantasy and sci-fi. I want to see things that I don't see day to day. And the things that Cirque du Soleil performers can do blows my freaking mind. I have seen stuff that seems impossible in terms of physically being able to do, or in terms of sheer dexterity. I've seen juggling routines that seem impossible, juggling off of objects and people in a way that should be uncontrollable. And so I've seen, I think, 3 Cirque du Soleil shows. 1 in Vegas, 2 in Vegas, and 1 in LA, and I want to see more. That's one of the main reasons I want to travel around. And when I go to Florida for Christmas, I'm hoping to go to a Cirque du Soleil show near Fort Lauderdale. Okay, let's go to Raw Story, the home of blogs by Anna Kasparian. The missing link in evolution is a myth that comes from medieval theology, not modern science. I do agree the idea that there is this missing link when it's not like we need one thing to connect all of these different. I mean, it's a continual thing. Every creature leads towards other creatures if you go long enough back in time or forward in time. I'm not throwing down the mic to take up the clown makeup in tutu. No, I do love Cirque du Soleil though. I would love to talk with Cirque du Soleil performers at some point. What that's actually like. I imagine that the work life, the social life of those performers must be pretty damn interesting. Okay, Stephen Colbert calls for Hunger Games for the GOP debate. Trump's speeches are the brain farts and ramblings of a guy who inhaled construction debris. I do agree. State Department investigating man who threatened journalists after street racing $5 million car. So this is Anna's op-ed on political correctness on college campuses. I read it yesterday. I largely agree with her. I think that there are very real things that people need to be protected, or not protected, but we need to have an understanding. I think that having understanding in general is a good thing. I do think, though, there is a tendency to think that it is strong philosophically or ideologically to make a statement that you are not going to be presented with something or have something posed to you, and I don't see that as a strength. I think personally that considering the sides of people that disagree with you, being exposed to their writing, the way that they think, I think that is a good thing for all sides. And yeah, I think that political correctness has gone too far, particularly on college campuses. I think that especially in college, you need to make yourself open to as much information as possible. Now, fine, provide information in the class about what the content is going to be, And I guess those people at the end of the day, the students, need to decide if they want to have an open mind to that material. And they can choose, but I think that if they choose to block off that sort of thing, I think that would be a bad thing. I mean, look, in grad school, I took a political theory class that was taught by a professor that I disagree with on almost everything. I mean, this guy was 100% deferential to ancient thinkers who were driven almost entirely by religious belief. And he thought that, whether he would say it or not, he thought that they were divinely inspired, and he would attribute such significance to the things that they would say, regardless of how backwards they were in terms of science or topics of homosexuality or, again, authority. But I still went and I argued with him, and I don't wish that I hadn't been exposed to that stuff as much as it bothered me at the time. What do I think about men who wear tights? I don't know a lot of men who wear tights. I guess it's fine. Are you going to put trigger warnings on the Bible? Yeah, the Bible is filled up with sexual assault and violence and genocide and emotional manipulation and psychological manipulation, and anything that you could have a trigger warning for appears in the Bible. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't read it. It's not particularly well written. You can not read it for that reason, but it is extremely influential, and so I think that most people would be benefited from reading it, even if I disagree with what people do with it today. Let's see. What's a good last... Oh, you know what? What am I forgetting Reddit for? Let's see what Reddit's got in its politics section. Even though they block way too many sites in their politics section. Jeb Bush's tax plan shows Republicans can't learn from economic history. That is definitely true. It's clear that there is literally no conceivable economic event or development that would dent the Republican conviction that cutting taxes for the wealthy is, if not the only thing, that can help the economy. And then they go on. But here's the flaw in that. It's totally true. It's the belief that they want to cut taxes because they think it will stimulate the economy, which might be true for some conservatives and for some Republican politicians. But I think that it's like the cherry on top of the sundae or whatever. Cutting taxes for wealthy people might stimulate the economy, and if it did, conservatives would be happy. But here's what cutting taxes for the wealthy definitely does. It cuts taxes for the wealthy. It doesn't. The side effects are irrelevant to conservatives. It doesn't matter if it might spawn a new race of unicorn men or whatever it might do. It definitely cuts taxes for the wealthy. And so I don't need to speculate about potential side effects. I know that they want it because of the primary effect, which is its stated effect, which is cutting taxes for the wealthy. Fuck the side effects. They want to do it because they want to give money immediately, next year, to wealthy people. Let's see. Colorado just became the first state ever to generate more taxes from marijuana than alcohol. That's amazing. And eventually that has to be influential to other states. Other states need money. They need tax revenue. And that's one way to get them. Let's see. Why a resurgent unapologetic left is on the rise globally. That's interesting. I'll read that later. ISPs don't have First Amendment rights to edit internet. FCC tells court. That sounds good. Pope Francis smacks churches. If you don't help the poor and needy, then pay taxes like a business. Did he actually say that? If so, that's amazing. Let's see. Some religious orders say no. Now that the convent is empty, we are going to make a hotel and we can have guests and support ourselves that way or make money. Well, if that is what you do, then pay taxes. A religious school is tax exempt because it is religious. But if it is functioning as a hotel, then it should pay taxes just like a neighbor. Otherwise, it is not fair business. Wow. Man, he was criticized as a communist recently, which I think is ridiculous. But his willingness to actually speak out against church leaders and the church is amazing. I'm going to read this entire speech a little bit later, but I already like it. You know me, I love talking about this Pope. Unfortunately, I am probably going to have to call it a day because I have to get over to the studio and I have to film Think Tank before our production meeting for the main show. Let's see if there's any more comments. Colorado is just giving money away because they have too much. Yeah, I've actually read that the way that it's set up, they actually have brought in too much tax revenue. I don't know about those caps. I think that if you're going to tax things like marijuana or alcohol or whatever, and it's going to go towards education, which I think it is in the Colorado case, let them generate as much as they want. Make the fucking Colorado schools the envy of the world, if that's what it takes to clue people in that it can be a good thing to legalize marijuana. Let's see. America Pope, best Pope. Well, he's not American Pope. Bye pie. Okay. Yes, I'm gonna run. Thank you for joining me for episode 6, I believe, of Do It Live. I know that my channel has been a little bit absent of content this past week or two. Has been absolutely insane. I've been traveling to farther down in Southern California to help out some friends recently. And last week for Think Tank was rough in terms of people not being able to be present at the studios to take care of the show and all that. But more is going to be coming, and as I mentioned on Twitter, I'm sort of gearing up mentally for National Novel Writing Month, which is probably going to take me even further away from being able to do as many videos as I want, but I think that it could be a good experience. Anyway, thank you for joining me, guys. This video, if you didn't watch the entire thing, is going to be up on the channel hopefully later today. And, first hour of the main show, 3 o'clock, is going to be with Anna. It's going to be the traditional second hour. After that comes the first hour, and then at 5, we switch over to covering the debate on CNN. It's going to be fun. I'll see you guys then.